He had always believed fatherhood wasn't in his destiny. Life had thrown him one challenge after another, and by his mid-30s, he had accepted that some dreams just weren't meant to be. He focused on his work, his small circle of friends, and the quiet routines that kept him going. But everything changed the day he met three strangers who looked just like him. It started on an ordinary afternoon. He was walking home from work, lost in his thoughts, when he noticed a group of people gathered near a cafe. Curiosity pulled him closer, and that's when he saw them, three young boys, laughing and talking, their faces eerily familiar. His breath caught in his throat. The resemblance was uncanny. The same sharp jawline, the same deep-set eyes, even the way one of them tilted his head when he laughed, it was like looking at a younger version of himself. At first, he thought it was just a strange coincidence. Maybe they were distant relatives he'd never met. But something inside him refused to let it go. He stood there, frozen, watching them until one of the boys glanced in his direction. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, it felt like the boy recognized him too. Then, just as quickly, the moment passed, and the boys turned away, disappearing into the crowd. That night, he couldn't sleep. The image of those three faces haunted him. Who were they? Why did they look so much like him? And most importantly, was there a connection between them that he didn't know about? The next morning, he made a decision. He had to find them again. He had to know the truth. He returned to the same cafe, hoping to spot them. Hours passed with no luck, but he refused to give up. He asked the cafe owner if he'd seen the boys before. The man nodded. "They come here sometimes after school," he said. "Nice kids. Always polite. School." That was a lead. If they were students, maybe he could find them. He waited outside the cafe the next day, his heart pounding. And then, just as the sun began to set, he saw them. The three boys, walking together, backpacks slung over their shoulders. This time, he didn't hesitate. He approached them, trying to keep his voice steady. "Hey," he said. I couldn't help but notice you guys the other day. You look familiar." The boys exchanged glances. The tallest one frowned. "Do we know you?" That was the question, wasn't it? He took a deep breath. "I don't know. But I think there's a chance we might be related." Silence. Then the youngest of the three spoke up, his voice quiet but curious. "How?" He didn't have an answer. Not yet. But he was determined to find out. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would change his life forever. A journey that would uncover secrets, challenge everything he thought he knew about himself, and, just maybe, lead him to the family he never knew he had. The boys stared at him, their expressions a mix of confusion and curiosity. The tallest one crossed his arms. "You think we're related? That's kinda weird, man." He swallowed hard. He knew how strange this must sound. "I know it sounds crazy," he admitted. "But when I saw you, it was like looking at myself when I was younger. I had to ask." The youngest boy tilted his head, studying him closely. "You really look like us," he said slowly. "Especially around the eyes." A spark of hope flickered in his chest. Maybe he wasn't imagining things. Maybe there really was a connection. The third boy, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Our mom might know something." His heart skipped a beat. "Your mom?" "Yeah," the tallest one said, shrugging. "She knows all about our family. If anyone has answers, it's her." For a second, he hesitated. What if this was a mistake? What if he was stepping into something he wasn't ready for? But the curiosity was too strong. Would she be okay with talking to me? The boys exchanged glances again, then nodded. "She's cool," the youngest said. We can ask. They agreed to meet the next day at the same cafe. As he walked home that evening, his mind raced. Who was this woman? How could she possibly explain why these boys looked exactly like him? Sleep didn't come easy that night. He tossed and turned, imagining different scenarios, some hopeful, some terrifying. By morning, he was both excited and nervous, like standing on the edge of something huge. When he arrived at the cafe, the boys were already there, sitting with a woman. His breath caught as he got closer. She was around his age, with warm eyes and a cautious smile. When she saw him, her expression shifted, surprise, then something deeper. Recognition? You're the one they told me about, she said softly. He nodded, suddenly unsure what to say. The boys fidgeted beside her, watching the exchange closely. She took a deep breath. I think we should talk. Alone. The boys protested, but she reassured them. Go wait outside for a bit. This won't take long. Reluctantly, they left, casting curious glances back at him. Once they were gone, she turned to him, her voice quiet but steady. I knew this day might come. I just didn't think it would be like this. His pulse pounded in his ears. What do you mean? She hesitated, then met his eyes. 15 years ago, I was a donor at a fertility clinic. The doctor said the donor was anonymous, but I always wondered. The words hit him like a punch. A donor. A fertility clinic. His mind flashed back to a time in his early 20s when he'd needed money and had made a decision he'd never thought much about since. You mean, those boys? She nodded slowly. They're yours. The world seemed to tilt. His legs felt weak. He sat down heavily, struggling to process what she'd just said. 3 sons. 3 lives he hadn't even known existed. She watched him carefully. I wasn't sure if I should ever tell them. But now that they've met you. He ran a hand through his hair, his thoughts spinning. Do they know? Not yet, she admitted. But they're smart. They'll figure it out. Outside, the boys laughed about something, their voices carrying through the glass. His sons. The word felt foreign yet strangely right. She leaned forward. I need to know what you want. If you're going to be part of their lives, or if this is just curiosity. He looked at her, then out at the boys. For the first time in years, he felt something he thought he'd lost, hope. I want to know them, he said quietly. If they'll let me. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Then we have a lot to talk about. And just like that, his life split into 2, the before, and the after. The weight of her words settled over him like a heavy blanket. Father. The word echoed in his mind, both terrifying and exhilarating. He had spent years believing he would never have children, now, in a single afternoon, he had 3. The boys were still outside, tossing a crumpled paper napkin like a football, completely unaware their lives were about to change forever. He watched them through the cafe window, their easy laughter, the way they nudged each other playfully. They had no idea. The woman, their mother, cleared her throat. I should probably introduce myself, she said with a small, nervous smile. I go by Mia. He nodded, still struggling to find his voice. I don't even know what to say. Mia sighed, twisting her coffee cup between her hands. I know this is a lot. It was a lot for me too when I first saw you. The resemblance is unbelievable. A silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken questions. Finally, he managed to speak. Do they have any idea? About me? Mia shook her head. I never told them the details. Just that they were conceived with help from a donor. She hesitated. But kids aren't stupid. The oldest one, he's been asking more questions lately. Especially after they met you. His chest tightened. They had noticed too. Mia took a deep breath. If you're serious about being in their lives, we need to do this carefully. They're good kids. Smart. But this could shake them. He nodded quickly. I don't want to hurt them. I need to know them. The words tumbled out before he could stop them. Do they have my last name? Mia's expression softened. No. They have mine. But. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I kept this. The donor profile from the clinic. I thought maybe one day they'd want to see it. With trembling hands, he took the paper. It had been nearly 15 years since he'd filled this out, back when he was young and broke and never imagined this could actually lead to real children. His younger self's handwriting stared back at him, listing hobbies, favorite foods, even a short paragraph about why he'd decided to donate. I want to help families who can't have kids otherwise. He swallowed hard. Back then, it had just been words on a page. Now, it was real. A loud burst of laughter came from outside. The youngest boy had just fake-tackled his brother, sending them both tumbling onto the grass in a heap of giggles. Mia followed his gaze. They're good boys, she said softly. Loud, messy, and they eat like they're training for a hot dog contest, but good. For the first time since this whole thing started, he felt a genuine smile tug at his lips. What are their names? Mia hesitated, then nodded as if coming to a decision. The tall one is Jay. The quiet one in the middle is Leo. And the little tornado is Sam. Jay. Leo. Sam. His sons had names now. They weren't just faces anymore, they were real people with personalities and quirks and lives he knew nothing about. Mia checked her watch. I should get them home soon. But, maybe you could come by tomorrow? We could talk more. Figure out how to tell them. He nodded eagerly. Yes. Absolutely. Whatever you think is best. As Mia called the boys inside, they came running, their faces flushed from play. Jay, the oldest, looked between them suspiciously. What were you guys talking about for so long? Mia ruffled his hair. Grown-up stuff. Come on, let's get home before the ice cream melts. As they gathered their things, Sam, the youngest, lingered for a second, looking up at him with those familiar eyes. Are you gonna come see us again? The question hit him square in the chest. He crouched down to Sam's level. Yeah, buddy. I think I will. Sam grinned, revealing a missing front tooth, and suddenly the world made sense in a way it never had before. As he watched them walk away, his family, he realized one thing with absolute certainty: his life would never be the same again. That night, he barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw their faces, Jay's skeptical frown, Leo's quiet observation, Sam's gap-toothed grin. His sons. The reality of it still didn't feel real, like he was walking through someone else's life. By sunrise, he was already dressed and pacing his apartment. He checked his phone every 5 minutes, even though Mia hadn't specified a time to come over. What did you even bring when meeting your children for the first time? Flowers felt wrong. Toys seemed too childish for the older two. In the end, he settled on a box of donuts, something simple, normal. The address Mia had texted led to a small blue house with a messy front yard full of bikes and a half-inflated soccer ball. His palms were sweating as he knocked. The door flew open almost immediately. Sam stood there, chocolate smeared around his mouth. You came, he shouted, as if they'd known each other for years. From deeper in the house, Mia's voice called out, Sam. Don't yell in people's faces. He stepped inside to chaos. The living room was a tornado of school papers, video game controllers, and at least 3 different pairs of shoes. Jay lounged on the couch, eyeing him with suspicion, while Leo sat at the kitchen table, methodically building a tower out of playing cards. Mia emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You made it," she said, though her smile looked strained. Sam tugged at his sleeve. "Did you really bring donuts? Can I have one?" Jay ate all the Pop-Tarts already. Jay threw a couch pillow at his brother. "Liar. There's still one left. Boys." Mia's voice carried a warning, and they both quieted instantly. She turned to him. "Maybe we should talk in the kitchen?" He followed her, acutely aware of 3 pairs of eyes tracking his every move. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast and laundry detergent. Mia poured 2 cups of coffee without asking how he took it. "They know something's up," she said quietly, stirring her coffee even though she hadn't added anything to it. "Jay's been grilling me all morning." As if on cue, Jay appeared in the doorway. "Are you gonna tell us what's going on or what?" Mia took a deep breath. "Go get your brothers. Sit at the table." The next 5 minutes felt like an eternity. The boys arranged themselves around the table, Jay with his arms crossed, Leo watching silently, Sam swinging his legs and stealing glances at the donut box. Mia reached over and took his hand. The gesture surprised him, but her grip was firm. "Boys," she said, her voice only shaking a little, "this man, we have reason to believe he's your biological father." Silence. Sam blinked. "Like, for real?" Jay's face darkened. "That's bull." Language, Mia said automatically, but her heart wasn't in it. Leo, who hadn't said a word since he arrived, reached out and poked his arm. "You feel real," he announced solemnly. The absurdity of the moment almost made him laugh. Here they were, in a kitchen that smelled like burnt breakfast, having the most earth-shattering conversation of their lives, and Leo was conducting a reality test. Jay stood up so fast his chair screeched. "If he's our dad, where's he been all this time?" It was the question he'd been dreading. Mia looked at him, and he knew this was his to answer. "I didn't know," he said, the words sticking in his throat. "I donated, well, sperm, when I was in college. I needed money. I never thought." Jay's expression could have melted steel. "So we were an accident." "Cool." Sam, ever the peacemaker, piped up. "I was an accident too. Mom says all the best people are." Against all odds, that got a small chuckle out of Jay. The tension in the room eased just a fraction. Mia squeezed his hand under the table. "This is a lot to process," she said. "For all of us. But I want you boys to know, nothing has to change unless you want it to." Leo, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Can we do a DNA test?" The question surprised everyone. Mia frowned. "Honey, we don't really need." "I want to see the numbers," Leo insisted. "Like on those shows." "The percentage." He found himself nodding. "If that would help." "I'll do whatever you need." Jay snorted. "Whatever. I'm going to my room." He stomped off, but not before grabbing 2 donuts from the box. Sam immediately claimed Jay's vacated seat. "If you're really our dad, does that mean we get allowance twice now?" Mia groaned. "Oh my God." And just like that, the heaviness lifted. For the next hour, they sat there, Sam asking increasingly ridiculous questions. "Do we get to pick which holidays we spend with you?" Leo quietly studying him like a science project, Mia alternating between laughter and tears. When he finally left that afternoon, his head was spinning. It wasn't perfect. Jay clearly hated him. Leo was reserving judgment. Sam seemed ready to move in with him tomorrow. But it was a start. As he walked to his car, he realized something surprising. For the first time in as long as he could remember, he was looking forward to tomorrow. The DNA test kit sat on his kitchen counter for 3 days before he worked up the courage to use it. He'd bought 2, one for himself, one for the boys to share, after Leo's request. The instructions might as well have been written in another language for all the sense he could make of them. Swab cheeks. Don't eat for 30 minutes before. Seal properly. He nearly jumped out of his skin when his phone buzzed. A text from Mia: boys did their swab today. Sam cried until we let him do it 3 times. Jay pretended he didn't care, but I caught him reading the instructions twice. A surprised laugh escaped him. He could picture it perfectly: Jay's feigned indifference, Leo's clinical precision, Sam's dramatic flair. Already, their personalities felt familiar in a way that made his chest ache. 2 weeks later. The email notification popped up on his phone while he was in line at the grocery store. Your ancestry DNA results are ready. His hands shook so badly he nearly dropped a carton of eggs. By the time he pulled into Mia's driveway, the sun had dipped below the horizon. All 3 boys were in the front yard, Jay shooting hoops, Leo reading under a tree, Sam attempting, and failing, to ride a skateboard. They all froze when his car door slammed. Mia appeared on the porch, drying her hands on a dish towel. That was fast, she called out. He held up his phone like it was evidence in a trial. It's here. What followed was the most surreal family meeting of his life. They crowded around Mia's laptop at the kitchen table, Sam practically vibrating with excitement, Jay radiating tension, Leo staring at the screen with laser focus. Mia clicked the link. The page loaded. Probability of paternity, 99.99997%. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Sam whooped loud enough to scare the neighbor's dog. I knew it. Do we get to call you Dad now? Can I tell my teacher? Does this mean I get? Jay slammed the laptop shut. I'm going for a walk. The screen door banged behind him. Mia made to follow, but he stopped her. Let me. He found Jay sitting on the curb halfway down the block, viciously tearing up dandelions. The teen didn't look up when he sat down beside him. You don't have to call me anything you're not comfortable with, he started. Jay hurled a handful of weeds into the street. What's the point? You show up out of nowhere, drop this bomb on us, and what? We're supposed to be some happy family now. The word stung, but he couldn't blame him. No. But maybe, we could get to know each other? Jay finally looked at him, eyes suspiciously bright. Why now? Why not 15 years ago? The million-dollar question. He picked at the pavement with his thumbnail. If I'd known about you, any of you, I would have been there. I swear. A long silence stretched between them. Crickets started their evening song. Somewhere down the street, a sprinkler kicked on. Jay sniffed hard. Leo's gonna want, like, weekly science updates on how genes work. The unexpected comment startled a laugh out of him. I can handle that. And Sam's gonna ask for a puppy every time you see him. I'm learning that. Jay picked at the knee of his jeans. I might come to your place sometime. If you have good snacks. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a hallmark moment. But it was a start. When they walked back to the house, they found Mia, Leo, and Sam sprawled in the living room watching a nature documentary. Sam immediately launched into a play-by-play of how paternity tests worked, most of it wrong, while Leo quietly slid a handwritten list across the coffee table titled Genetic Traits to Investigate. Mia caught his eye and smiled. It wasn't perfect. There would be more slammed doors, more hard conversations, more growing pains than any of them could imagine. But as he sat there, surrounded by the noise and chaos of this family he'd somehow become part of, he realized something incredible. He was exactly where he was meant to be. Jay's first visit to his apartment started with a disaster before the kid even walked through the door. He'd spent all morning cleaning, stocking up on every snack the boys had ever mentioned liking, and even bought a new gaming controller. Then he got the text. On our way. FYI, Jay's in a mood. Mia's warning didn't prepare him for the storm that blew in. Jay stomped through the doorway, took one look around the apartment, and immediately zeroed in on the framed photo he'd placed on the bookshelf, a picture of all 5 of them from last weekend. Seriously? Jay scoffed, picking it up like it was evidence at a crime scene. We've known you for 5 minutes and you're already doing the whole proud dad thing? His face burned. I just thought. Save it. Jay dropped onto the couch with enough force to make the springs creak. Where's your Wi-Fi password? The next 2 hours were agony. Jay ignored every attempt at conversation, blasting music through his headphones while scrolling on his phone. The snacks went untouched. The new controller stayed in its packaging. He was considering faking a medical emergency when his phone buzzed. A text from Leo: did you know our grandfather died of cardiomyopathy? It's hereditary. We should get tested. Great. Just what this visit needed, a looming health crisis. Before he could respond, Jay suddenly ripped off his headphones. This is stupid. I'm going home. What? Why? Jay stood up so fast he knocked over a bowl of pretzels. Because you're trying too hard. The perfect snacks, the dumb photo, acting like you care. I do care. The words came out louder than he intended. Jay froze. For the first time all afternoon, the mask of indifference slipped. Prove it. How? Tell me one real thing about yourself. Not this fake nice guy act. The challenge hung between them. He took a deep breath. When I was your age, I failed math twice. Had to go to summer school. Jay blinked. You're joking. Wish I was. He rubbed the back of his neck. My dad, your grandfather, called me a disappointment to my face. Tore up my report card and made me pick up the pieces. A beat of silence. Then, to his shock, Jay sat back down. What happened after? He died before I could prove him wrong. The old ache flared up, duller now but still present. I ended up passing with AC-. Barely scraped through high school. Jay studied him with new interest. Mom said you're some big-shot accountant now. Took me 7 years to get my degree. Worked nights. He shrugged. Turns out I'm good with numbers when they're attached to dollar signs. To his amazement, Jay actually laughed. Then, even more shocking, reached for the abandoned bag of chips. Okay, old man. Show me this weak gaming setup you bought. They were halfway through a brutally one-sided Mario Kart race when his phone buzzed again. Sam this time. Told Mrs. Henderson you're my dad and she said congratulations and gave me extra gold stars. When can I sleep over? He was still figuring out how to respond when another text came through: Mia. The words made his blood run cold. We need to talk. The fertility clinic. I think they broke the law. The moment Mia's text came through, the apartment seemed to tilt. Jay must have noticed his expression change because he paused the game. What's wrong? He hesitated, then showed Jay the message. The boy's eyebrows shot up. Whoa. That's sketchy. Mia arrived 30 minutes later, her usual calm replaced by nervous energy. She carried a thick manila folder stuffed with papers. Jay, to his surprise, didn't retreat to his phone. He scooted over on the couch to make room, eyes fixed on the folder. Mia wasted no time. After Leo's question about hereditary conditions, I dug up all my clinic paperwork. She spread documents across the coffee table: contracts, consent forms, medical records. Look at this donor agreement. He picked up the faded form, his own youthful signature at the bottom. The small print made his stomach drop. donor agrees sperm may be used for up to 10 successful pregnancies. 10. His voice cracked. That can't be legal. Mia pulled out a highlighted document. Current guidelines say no more than 25 offspring per donor nationwide to prevent accidental sibling marriages. But back when you donated? The laws were looser. Jay snatched up one of the papers. Wait, you're saying we might have, 20 brothers and sisters running around? The thought made him lightheaded. He'd been struggling to process 3 sons, now there could be more. Mia bit her lip. I contacted the clinic. They refused to give me information, citing donor confidentiality. She held up another form. But I found this in my records, your donor number. And look. She showed them a spreadsheet-style document with rows of codes. At least 15 entries shared his donor number. Jay let out a low whistle. Dude. You're like a superhero. Sperm man. Jay. Mia swatted his arm, but even she couldn't completely suppress a smile. The absurdity of the moment, sitting here discussing his accidental genetic legacy while eating stale pretzels, hit him all at once. He started laughing, then couldn't stop. Soon Mia and Jay were laughing too, the tension momentarily broken. Then his phone rang. Leo's name flashed on the screen. He answered to hear rapid, clinical speech. My preliminary ECG showed abnormal rhythms. Doctor wants full cardiac workup. Maternal grandfather's death certificate lists cardiac complications as cause. Probability of inherited. Leo, breathe, he interrupted. Where are you now? School nurse's office. They called Mom but she's not answering. Mia paled, grabbing her phone. My battery died. I told them to call you in emergencies but I'm on my way. He was already grabbing his keys. Jay stood too. I'm coming. 20 minutes later, they all crowded into the pediatric cardiologist's office. Leo sat perfectly still as electrodes were attached to his chest, his face eerily calm. Sam, who Mia had picked up on the way, clutched his hand tightly. The doctor, a no-nonsense woman with silver hair, studied the EKG readout. There are some irregularities here. Nothing immediately dangerous, but given the family history. She looked at him. Have you ever been tested for cardiomyopathy? His mouth went dry. No. Never had symptoms. That you've noticed. The doctor adjusted her glasses. Palpitations? Shortness of breath after mild exertion? Now that she mentioned it. Sometimes, but I thought that was just getting older. She nodded grimly. I'd like to run the same tests on you. If it is hereditary, early detection is crucial. The next hour passed in a blur of tests and paperwork. Through it all, he was acutely aware of 4 pairs of eyes watching him, Mia's worried, Leo's analytical, Sam's wide with fear, Jay's trying too hard to look unaffected. As they waited for results, Sam climbed onto his lap, something the usually energetic boy hadn't done since their first meeting. You're not gonna die, right? The question hit like a punch. He hugged Sam closer. Not if I can help it, buddy. The doctor returned with a stack of printouts. Good news first, Leo's condition appears mild, manageable with medication and monitoring. She turned to him. You, however, show clear signs of early-stage hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Mia gasped. Jay's jaw tightened. Leo nodded like he'd expected nothing less. Sam buried his face in his shirt. It's treatable, the doctor continued. Medication, lifestyle changes, regular monitoring. Many people live full lives with this condition. She gave him a pointed look. Especially when it's caught early. Later, after prescriptions were filled and follow-up scheduled, they found themselves at a diner down the street. Sam was coloring on a placemat, Leo reading the medication pamphlets, Jay uncharacteristically quiet. Mia stirred her coffee absently. You should contact a lawyer about the clinic. If they knew about this hereditary risk and didn't screen for it. He watched as Sam drew a lopsided heart with a smiley face inside it. Right now, I'm just glad we found out in time. Jay suddenly spoke up. You're really okay with all this? The messed up clinic, the health stuff, us just dropping into your life? He looked around the table, at these people who'd become his world in just a few short weeks. Best thing that ever happened to me. Sam held up his drawing. Look. It's our family. The heart is 'cause we love each other. And just like that, the heavy mood lifted. Leo launched into an explanation of how hearts actually work. It's not shaped like that at all. Jay stole Sam's crayons to fix the drawing. Mia laughed until tears gathered in her eyes. As he sat there surrounded by their chaos, a strange thought occurred to him, that clinic's shady practices had given him more than he ever could have imagined. Not just sons. A family. The medication made him feel like he was moving through fog. The cardiologist had warned him, beta blockers would take some adjustment. But as he sat at his kitchen table staring at the growing list on his laptop, the fuzziness in his head had nothing to do with his heart condition. Donor number 1147 offspring. J, 15. Leo, 14. Sam, 12. Emily R., Portland, Oregon. Noah B., Chicago, Illinois. Liam K., Austin, Texas. The list went on to 17 confirmed siblings so far, all uncovered through DNA registry sites and fertility clinic leaks. 17 kids sharing his eyes, his smile, possibly his faulty heart. A knock at the door startled him. Mia stood on his doorstep, holding 2 coffees and looking like she hadn't slept. You look terrible, she said by way of greeting. Thanks. He took the coffee she offered. You too. Mia dropped into his couch with a sigh. I've been digging through more clinic records. Found something weird. He braced himself. After everything they'd uncovered this past month, weird could mean anything from secret genetic experiments to more half-siblings. Mia pulled out a familiar-looking consent form, but this one had her signature. Turns out I wasn't just a client at that clinic. I worked there briefly in college. The coffee turned to acid in his stomach. Wait. You knew me back then? No. That's the thing. Mia ran a hand through her hair. I was a receptionist for 6 months. Never saw donors, they kept that department completely separate. But get this, the doctor who ran the program? He's been indicted twice for fraud. He stared at her. You think this was intentional? I think we need to talk to a lawyer. 3 days later. The conference room at Sullivan and Gray law offices smelled like expensive coffee and anxiety. Attorney Mark Sullivan, a bulldog of a man with a reputation for taking on medical corporations, flipped through their documents with growing interest. This is explosive, Sullivan finally said. The clinic exceeded legal limits, failed to screen for hereditary conditions, and falsified records. He tapped Mia's employment paperwork. And this connection means they may have violated ethics rules by allowing an employee to use donor services. Mia stiffened. Are you saying they matched me with him on purpose? Possibly. Or it could be coincidence. Either way. Sullivan leaned forward. We have grounds for a massive lawsuit. Medical malpractice, fraud, emotional distress, especially given your recent diagnosis. The word lawsuit should have felt satisfying. Instead, it just made him tired. What about the other families? The other kids who might have this condition? Sullivan smiled like he'd been waiting for this question. That's where it gets interesting. A class action could force the clinic to provide free genetic testing for all donor-conceived offspring. As they discussed legal strategies, his phone buzzed continuously, messages from the siblings they'd connected with so far. Pictures of a brown-eyed girl in Oregon who shared Sam's grin. A lanky teenager in Texas with Jay's stubborn chin. A toddler in Florida whose parents had no idea about the genetic time bomb in her DNA. That evening, he was reviewing medical forms when his doorbell rang. Jay stood on the doorstep, hoodie soaked from the rain. "Can I stay here tonight?" Something was wrong. Jay's usual bravado was gone, replaced by a vulnerability he'd never shown before. "Of course. Everything okay?" Jay shrugged off his wet jacket. "Got in a fight with Mom." He flopped onto the couch. "She won't let me go to some stupid concert." This didn't feel like a simple teenager tantrum. Jay's hands were shaking. He sat beside him. "What's really going on?" For a long moment, Jay said nothing. Then, so quiet he almost missed it, "I'm scared you're gonna die." The words hung between them. Jay kept his eyes fixed on his hands. "I looked it up. That heart thing you have? People drop dead from it. Basketball players. Young people." Understanding dawned. "And the concert is 3 hours away. What if something happens while I'm gone?" Jay's voice cracked. "What if I don't get to?" He pulled Jay into a hug. The boy resisted for half a second before clinging to him like he was 8 instead of 15. "I'm not going anywhere," he murmured into Jay's hair. "I promise." Jay pulled back, wiping his eyes angrily. "You can't promise that." "You're right. But I can promise I'll do everything my doctors say. That I'll fight like hell to be here as long as possible." He squeezed Jay's shoulder. "And that includes driving you to that concert myself if I have to." Jay let out a wet laugh. Then, so quietly it was almost inaudible, "Thanks, Dad." The word sent a shock through his system. Before he could respond, his phone rang, the hospital. His cardiologist. Jay's face went pale. "You should get that." He answered on speaker. "Dr. Alvarez?" "Good news," the doctor said without preamble. "Your latest echo looks stable. With medication and monitoring, you could have decades ahead of you." Jay's relieved gasp mirrored his own. When they hung up, the boy punched his arm. "See? Told you you'd be fine." The whiplash from worried son to cocky teenager would have been funny if his heart wasn't already working overtime. 1 month later. The backyard was decked out in what could only be described as Sam's idea of decoration, streamers everywhere, a lopsided family reunion banner, he'd run out of room for the eye, and enough sugary treats to put them all in diabetic comas. 17 kids. From 15-year-old Jay to 4-year-old Hannah. Some had traveled across the country to meet their biological siblings. Others lived close enough for regular visits. Mia manned the grill, laughing as Sam attempted to explain their complicated family tree to a group of bewildered half-siblings. Leo held court at the picnic table with printouts about inherited cardiac conditions. Jay, once the most resistant, was quietly showing a nervous 12-year-old how to shoot hoops. As he circulated, introducing himself to each new face that carried pieces of his own, a woman approached holding a toddler. "You must be donor 1147, she said with a tired smile. "I'm Rebecca. This is your son, Caleb." The word still sent a jolt through him. He knelt to meet the little boy's eyes, same as his, same as Jay's, same as so many others here. "Hey, buddy." Caleb hid his face in his mother's shoulder. Rebecca lowered her voice. "We got the genetic testing. He's clear. But, thank you for fighting to make that possible for all of them." Later, as the sun set and the backyard filled with the sounds of his sprawling, chaotic, completely unexpected family, Mia slipped her hand into his. "Overwhelmed?" He looked around, at the siblings comparing birthmarks, the parents exchanging contact information, the kids who would grow up knowing each other thanks to this mess. Best kind of overwhelmed. Sam came barreling over, face sticky with cotton candy. Dad! Can we do this every year? The word still felt new. Still felt miraculous. Yeah, buddy. He pulled Sam into a one-armed hug. Every year. As the party continued around them, he realized something: the clinic's lies had brought pain, but also this. The family he never knew he wanted. The sons who made every struggle worth it. The life that, against all odds, had turned out better than he could have imagined. And as Jay tossed a basketball his way with a challenging grin, as Leo reminded him to take his medication, as Sam climbed into his lap despite being too old for it, he knew one thing for certain. He was exactly where he belonged.